the Denver Center for the Performing Arts Off-Center and the Museum of Contemporary Art Denver present Mixed Taste at Home. Virtual tag team lectures about unrelated topics. And now, introducing tonight's unlikely pairing, Zenos Paradox and Artivism. And here are your hosts, Sarah Bai and Charlie Miller.
Welcome, Charlie. It's our final show.
Woohoo! We made it.
We did it. Hi, I'm Sarah Bai. I'm the Director of Programming at the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver.
And I'm Charlie Miller, Off-Center Curator at the Denver Center for the Performing Arts. And welcome to Mixed Taste at Home.
We are coming to you live from our homes. Our guests are in their homes, and we are glad that you are tuning in from your home.
In case you don't know, Off-Center produces unexpected theatrical experiences.
And the Museum of Contemporary Art, Denver is a contemporary art museum in Denver.
And Mixed Taste is our summer series that has been going on since 2005. And tonight is our final Mixed Taste of the summer after 6 successful weeks of online streaming.
We made it, and we're so glad that you did too. As with every week, we're coming to you live on YouTube and Facebook. We'll have a chance for you to comment. We're going to play a game, and you could win a prize at the end.
However you're watching tonight, you'll need to log in before you can comment. So click on the Say Something or Write a Comment box at the bottom of the live chat area to get started. If you're watching with a TV, it gets complicated, so we recommend you chat through a computer or mobile device.
So to get the conversation going tonight, we have a question for you to get started. So now that Mixed Taste is ending, what are you going to do on Wednesday nights? So just type a comment in the comment box and we're going to show you how it works. So Charlie, what are you going to do on Wednesday nights?
I am not going to spend multiple hours setting up the studio in my family room and tearing it down. That's what I'm not going to do.
So you're going to just lay around.
Yeah, I don't hang out. What about you?
I'll watch TV. Is that what people do on Wednesday nights? I don't even know. We'll find out. Here, let's see what people are saying they're going to do on Friday night. Well, someone says that they've got their beverage in hand and they're finally ready to see this in action this week. So that's pretty good.
The common theme here, Eric's going to be drinking anyway. Great.
Oh, well, that's good. John says he's going to watch movies now.
And KMNW, curl up in a ball and cry. We feel you. And hopefully what will console you is when you claim your prize from last week, because you asked the best question, but we don't have your address. So send it to us and we'll make sure we get it to you. offcenter@dcpa.org. Sorry for that infomercial there. That's just for you.
Just for one bidder. Oh, well, in case you're wondering what you wandered into, why YouTube recommended this video to you. Mixed Taste is a mashup series where we bring together two experts who each present on different topics, and then we have a live question and answer on both topics at the
same time.
We did it after 6 weeks.
The rules are really simple. The first speaker talks for 20 minutes. Then the second will speak on a completely unrelated topic for 20 minutes. During the first part of the program, no connections are allowed to be made between the two topics. But during the Q&A, anything can happen.
And frequently does. So between the talks tonight, we're going to play a quick game. And at the end of the evening, we will have a poet perform an original poem inspired by tonight's show. So our topics for the evening are Zenos Paradox and Artivism.
Let's get started, and it's my pleasure to introduce our first guest. Elisabeth Stade is an artist and mathematician. Her work in both fields looks for hidden patterns beyond perception. As an educator, she aims to reveal mathematics as a pattern, and as an artist, she creates tactile experiences from abstract ideas. Elisabeth teaches computer science and experience design at the University of Colorado. Please welcome Elisabeth Stade.
Everybody, I'm Elisabeth Stade. I'm so excited to be talking about Zenos Paradox, which has a lot to do with infinity. And I absolutely love infinity. That's what made me a mathematician. And Zeno is all about infinity. He has lots of examples involving turtles of all things, turtles, Archimedes, arrows. He had 40 different ways of thinking about this idea. But Zeno wasn't actually thinking about mathematics, crazy enough. Here's what Zeno was really up to. Zenos paradoxes are examples of radical rational Parmenidean skepticism, which reveal the flaws in and challenges the arguments of the Greek natural philosophers. That is, their methods, if carried out to their logical consequences, deliver absurdities. I was put to right by this when I thought I could just talk about Zeno and infinity. We're not going to talk about it that way. There's lots of infinity in Zeno's paradoxes. There were about 40 of them, and we have about 9 left. They all involve infinity, and we'll talk about them in detail. But I wanted to start off with some beautiful ideas of infinity, just to get a taste. And one of my favorite ideas of infinity comes from William Blake: to see a world in a grain of sand and heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. And this has always been one of my very favorite poems. I think it's about calculus, but that's because I'm a mathematician. So to get into how infinity relates to Zeno's paradox, let's give a simple example of one of Zeno's paradox. And I'm going to ask Charlie and Sarah to help me. Can you guys come on and help?
Mm-hmm.
Hi, we're here.
We're ready.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to do my version of the arrow Zeno's paradox. So we need everybody, and you can do this at home too. Put your hands about this far apart, and you're going to hold one hand steady, and then you're going to move the other hand. So one hand steady, and you're going to move the other hand, and we're going to go halfway to the hand. Just go halfway. Okay. And we're going to go halfway again. Okay. And the idea of Zeno's paradox, before you keep going, the idea is that if I only ever go halfway to my hand, I can't get to my hand. So keep going halfway. So what's going on? What do you see going on when you go halfway and halfway? I know it gets tricky.
I get closer and closer, but will I ever get there?
Yeah. Will you? Now, so Zeno's paradox was, well, if I'm really going halfway, I can't get there. But I wonder if do you guys think you could get there? Do you think you could think of a way? You're geniuses.
Thank you.
Charlie, can you do it too? Awesome. Hey, thanks so much for helping me with that.
You're welcome.
So we can see this is the paradox. The paradox is if I only go halfway, then if I do that forever, right? If I'm only ever going halfway, I can never get there. But obviously I can. Wow, I really like that sound. What is that sound? Is that the sound of one hand clapping? Did we just solve an ancient paradox? Ooh, bonus. But let's do another example so we can really understand kind of the nuances of Zeno's paradox. So let's do it with a piece of paper, the same kind of thing, so we can really get an idea of how infinity is messing with us. So let's say this piece of paper has a length of 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the piece of paper in half, right? So I've got 1/2 here. I'm going to cut the people in half. Can you see how it's a little bit like going to the hand? So it's 1/2 and 1/4. We don't really have to think about fractions here. Let me show you when I did it before. We keep cutting and cutting. And as we cut these pieces, right, as I cut these pieces, what my goal is going to be is to cut infinitely many pieces. I want to get infinitely close to the end. So to really demonstrate Zeno's paradox, I need to cut infinitely many pieces. Wait, what, Charlie? What? I only have 20 minutes? Oh, we're going to run out of time if I have to cut infinitely many pieces. This is the paradox. Can I get infinitely many pieces? Can I put them back together? So let's take a sec. Let's consider a world where Zeno's paradox is not a paradox at all. And actually, it starts to get us thinking about the resolution of the universe. So let's go to a computer game universe. This universe is not infinite. This universe has about 70 pixels. And this little black box, let's call that little black box, that's going to be an arrow. And let's do the same game. It's always about going halfway. We go halfway to the tree. I'm shooting my arrow halfway to the tree. And at this point, notice I'm close to the tree. And if I want to do Zeno's paradox, I have to go halfway again. Can I go halfway? I can't, because I get to the tree, right? You have to, because there's only 1 pixel. So what if I do more pixels? I can take my arrow, see my advanced graphic arrow, go halfway to the tree, halfway. Again, I've got a smallest pixel. So I've got a smallest pixel, I can't cut it in half, and I get to the tree. And notice when I do this, I'm getting a really nice illusion of motion. But in every time I have video graphics, I always have a smallest point. I have a smallest point, and I get to the tree. So Zeno's paradox does not work in video games. And Zeno's paradox more generally doesn't work if you have a smallest point, right? It doesn't work if I have a smallest point. And we can also see this like in a flip book, right? Make a little flip book, right? How many to have perfect motion, how thick should this flip book be? It would have to have infinitely many pages. And we're really familiar with this idea, right? Can there be a smallest point? Can there be a smallest point? And what does it mean if there is a smallest point? So if we look at advanced graphics, for example, we know we can zoom in and see pixels, right? And there's always a smallest point. And this is really, really important when we get back to our example here with the paper, because the question is, can I get a smallest piece? And what does it mean? So if I can get a smallest piece, then I'm only ever going to have finitely many pieces, right? So if our universe is finite, then Zeno's paradox doesn't mean anything. So I keep trying. I keep trying. Now, I do this with my class a lot. I give them this, I say, look, we're going to have someone take it for the team. We're going to have someone sit in the corner all semester and just try to make the smallest piece. And somebody's like, Miss Stade, I gotcha. You can't split an atom, right? They always ask that. Bad things happen. I have an answer. So let's suppose Josh is sitting in the corner and he's the one cutting the pieces, and we get down to the atomic level. We get down to an atom, and we don't want to cut an atom because bad things happen. Got an answer. We're not going to use the scissors. We're going to start putting little dotted lines on the atom. And we'll just keep getting closer and closer and closer. Now, the question is, can you really keep getting closer and closer? It's the same question again. Is there a smallest piece? Is there a smallest point? So let's think about that for a minute. We'll be a little bit mathy here. What is a point? Right? Now, you all know from elementary school, on a number line, we know that the point isn't the dot. We know that even if you get a really sharp pencil, right, a point has no dimension. Everybody knows that. But I wonder if you've really thought about the implications. What does it really mean if a point doesn't have any dimension? Right? And our paper example is a great way to see this. A point is not a skinny dot. A point is a cut. A point is a cut. And if a point is a cut, there's no way for me to cut next to a cut, right? I can't cut next to a cut. Every time I make a cut, there is a little teeny tiny piece of something going on. So as I'm making these cuts, trying to get my infinite set, I'm trying to get those infinitely many pieces, I'm never getting a smallest point. I can't get a smallest point because a point has no dimension and I'm going to get a little cut. Okay, I wasn't going to do this. I probably shouldn't. You can ignore it if you want, but it's such a cool idea. Okay, so are you with me that a point is a cut? No dimension, 0. No height, no width. Okay, got a point. Let's make a stack of points. Here's a point. I'm going to bring some more. I'm going to line up some points. Then come jump. Come on, all points jumping on. So I make a little stack of points. They have no dimension. How tall is my stack? 0. Okay, points socially distanced, 6 feet apart, all the way to the moon. Come on, jump on the stack. All the points coming on. How tall is my stack? 0. No matter how many points I put on there, 0, right? Okay, here's the kicker. Here's the crazy thing, right? Ready? What's a line made of? A line is made of points. how can a line have any distance? Crazy, right? Right? Okay, so erase your memory if you don't like that. But if you do, you have to go to grad school. Sorry. So how are we going to conceive of infinity? How are we going to really wrap this up? We really want to understand, how can I cut that paper into infinitely many pieces? How is it that we get close to the hand and don't touch the hand, but obviously we can't? And what we're going to need is some imagination. And the kind of imagination we're going to need is mathematics, which I know we don't usually think about it that way, but mathematics is a very disciplined imagination. And in fact, mathematicians make up things all the time. But once they make them up, they're very firm with the rules that they use with them. So we'll just take a little detour into mathematics, just a little bit. Let's talk about a number. So if I want to understand infinity, it's going to help if I understand a number. And in fact, you already are using numbers in an incredibly abstract and sophisticated way. Let's think about what is an 8. Realize that some languages don't even have the number 8, right? So what is it? I asked a bunch of kids in 2nd grade, what is 8? Or what is a number even? And one kid said, oh, it's like a letter. And he kind of pointed to the letters and numbers around the classroom. Someone else said, you can count with it. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. And someone else said, you do math with it. But there was this one little girl, and I said, what is a number? And she was very thoughtful. She thought, she looked up and she said, it's what tells you how many you have of something. And this is genius. And the reason it's so amazing, this is literally the rigorous definition of a number. We call it cardinality of the set. It took mathematicians like hundreds of years to come up with this definition. And little Maria just like figured it out in like 2 seconds. It tells you how much you have of something. And so this is really interesting. So what is 8? We think of numbers as a super concrete thing. Like our canonical example is like 1 + 1 = 2, like duh, right? That's so concrete, that's so solid. But really 8 is an incredibly abstract concept, right? Tape dispensers are not like geese. Circles are not triangles. Push pins are not geese. But there's an 8-ness to them. And so if we look on this picture, we can see 8, the quality of 8, right? This abstract quality of 8, 8 tape dispensers, 8 dots are something the same. In fact, there's one thing on this slide and only one thing that is not really 8. Can you see where it is? Yeah, it's the 8. The 8 is not really an 8. And Rene Magritte understood this perfectly. This is not a pipe. Right? There's this beautiful abstract realm, and we don't realize we're actually using the same beauty that we see in art in mathematics. A brilliant friend of mine made this next slide. Thank you, Karen Spies. Ceci n'est pas un 8, which means this is not an 8. It's my nerdy art joke. All right, so let's go back to Zeno's paradox. Is infinity a number? Is it a cardinality of a set? Does it tell me how many I have of something? Well, it doesn't. I think we can see really clearly now that we know what a number is. It's not a number. So what is an infinite set? And how are we going to understand this? And this situation is really critical because it's going to come up in calculus. And I promise we won't do maybe we'll do calculus at another mixed taste, not tonight. How do we understand infinity? Well, I'm going to give you the short story. Mathematicians have this idea called convergent and divergent to describe infinity and different ways infinity work. We could do some really rigorous mathematics, but how about we talk to Mr. Escher instead? Escher actually thought a lot about infinity and representations of infinity. And he has beautiful ways for us to demonstrate the difference between convergent infinity and divergent infinity, which is really at the heart of Zeno's paradox and why it's a paradox. So let's look at these two ways. Convergent infinity, divergent. So divergent means infinity out of control. Infinity going to infinity and beyond, like infinity, the starship breaking through the galaxy, going on and on. It just doesn't end. No, all infinity doesn't end, but this one's like just out of control. Convergent infinity gets back to this idea of not having a smallest piece. If I don't have a smallest piece, right? If I'm not limited by a video game world, and I don't have a smallest piece, then I can make an infinity that stays on a piece of paper, like a fractal or this Escher's circle limit. I can contain the infinity because you can see the infinity going out, 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 out on the edges. Because I don't have a smallest point, I'm never going to leave the page. So this kind of infinity is convergent, and the other kind's divergent. So let's play a little game. I'll give you some images of convergent and divergent infinity, and you can play along and see what you think. Okay, so this one, kind of a gimme, divergent, right? Universe, what do we think? Divergent. Yeah. Okay, here's another Escher, convergent, right? Yayo Kasumi, awesome. Divergent, I think. Crazy, out of control, right? Here's a beautiful rug. Notice how it's going outward. The rug, we can keep going and going and going. It's not going to leave that circle. So that's convergent. Divergent, we recognize you. Convergent, not a circle. Here's a fractal. So a fractal, it won't leave the page, but we could zoom in, right? We can zoom in and see those layers and layers and layers in there. So this is going to be convergent, right? And there is some divergence going on, but we can think of convergence in terms of area. The area, totally convergent. Now, this is one of Escher's earlier ones, and this one's kind of a trick. What do you think? This is one of Escher's earlier ideas for circle limit, and it's a little bit of a trick. When we look at the center, right, it looks a lot like the sort of fractal images I showed you early on, right? In the center, it's smaller and smaller. So the center seems to have that convergent infinity going on. But if we look at the outside, it's kind of suggesting this infinity getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? It's sort of suggesting that this could go on and on and on and on. So it's nice, right? It's good, the one with the infinity getting bigger. But it's really fascinating, and I suggest you go read about Escher. If you go read about Escher's thought process when he created circle limit, it's quite fascinating that he deliberately went from this sort of double-ended infinity, like where the fish are coming out and they're going in, to this infinity where it's absolutely limited, right? The infinity that's limited here on the edges, and it can't leave the page. So there's no divergence in the one with the bats and the angels. And it's also kind of a beautiful reference to angels dancing on the head of a pin, right? A famous question, how many angels can dance on the head of a pin? So now we're right back at Zenos Paradox. If we look at Escher's circle limit drawing, look at the length of the wings on this bat of the half circle. We're going about halfway across, halfway, 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 halfway. And as long as we don't have a smallest point, as long as our universe is infinite, we can keep going forever. We can keep going to infinity, right? There is no smallest point. We can go to infinity, and we can call this an infinite set. And this is exactly how we add up an infinite set. So if I go back to my pictures, if I go back to this, I go all the way back to this. If I have all the pieces here, if I stop at any point, I have a finite set, and the length of the whole object won't be 1. But if I really have an infinite set, and maybe now you understand we define a convergent infinite set, if I can take something finite and show it a way to divide it up into infinitely many pieces, it's convergent. It comes together. It really is infinity, even if I can't cut it, even if I'm not going to make somebody play with the scissors for the rest of their lives. So I really can hold infinity in the palm of my hand. And I can see a world in a grain of sand. and heaven in a wild flower, and eternity in 20 minutes. Thank you so much. And thank you to all the people that helped me. This is my website. That's it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elisabeth. I bet you have a lot of questions, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, I have so many questions. I bet everybody at home has questions too. Write them down and save them at the end. All right, now it's
intermission time, folks.
You were so excited there. You almost just kept on going and you didn't let our little cute vintage clip show there, Sarah.
It's true because my mind has been blown. All right. Now is the time in our program where we ask you for money. As you know, Mixed Taste is a collaboration between DCPA and MCA Denver, and we have both been hard hit by the effects of COVID-19.
We are offering Mixed Taste online for free this summer so that everyone can afford to enjoy it. But it takes a lot to produce Mixed Taste, and both our organizations need your support now more than ever in order to continue programming like this.
If you have the means, please consider donating to support DCPA and MCA Denver. I just shared the link to donate in the live chat. It's dcpa.today/mixtaste.
We suggest a donation of $20 per person, which is what we would normally charge for tickets, but any amount helps and will be shared equally between the two organizations. And this is our last Mixed Taste of the season and your last chance to avoid the guilt that will haunt you if you let Mixed Taste end without supporting it.
Have you enjoyed streaming Mixed Taste this summer? Will you miss it when it's gone? Please show your support and do your part by donating right now at dcpa.today/mixtaste.
Thank you in advance for your generosity. And if you enjoy programming like this, there's more of it tomorrow. So tell us about it, Sarah.
That's right. Tomorrow, Thursday, August 20th at noon, Neri Ward, who's the exhibiting artist for the exhibition We the People up at MCA Denver, will be joined by Sir David Age, who is the architect of our building and many other fantastic buildings, including the Smithsonian. And they are in conversation together. It's free. It's online. And you can sign up at mcadenver.org. So now let's play a game.
Excellent. So each week we play a game with the help of you, our audience. The very first week of Mixed Taste this summer, we played a game I called Mixed Taste Literally, where I had to eat the terrible combination of kimchi and Nutella. And now finally, it is Sarah's turn. So this week, I'm excited to introduce a new mixology game we like to call Mixed Taste Drinks Edition. So there's no alcohol involved, so don't worry. Sarah will be making a delicious mocktail with the help of you, our audience, and tonight's poet. So to begin, let's welcome James Brunt. Welcome, James.
Hello.
Hi, James.
So you're going to help choose 2 ingredients for Sarah's mocktail, and the audience will choose the third with a live vote. Sarah, what have you sourced from your house to be your ingredients for James and the audience to choose from tonight?
Can you bring up the bar cam, Charlie? You can take a look.
Bring the bar cam. Here it is.
Here we've got blue Powerade. We have kombucha. That's lion's root flavored kombucha. We have some pickle juice. You'll notice there's no pickles left. Just save the juice there. We've got some children's ibuprofen. That is bubblegum flavored children's ibuprofen. We've got maple syrup from Costco, and we have some Cholula. So there you go.
Great. So
all delicious things.
James, now it's time for you to choose the 2 ingredients that will flavor Sarah's drink. What will they be?
I'll go with let me go with the blue Powerade. The blue Powerade, you know, get your workout in.
Blue is my favorite flavor.
Is it? Oh my goodness. Blue is the best. And that maple syrup, because you know who doesn't love a good pancake or waffle?
All right.
James, thank you.
James's
You're welcome.
Selections are in. Thank you, James. So everyone out there, now it's your turn. Please click on the link that I just posted and vote for the 3rd ingredient that will complete Sarah's mixed drink. Ooh. What do you think goes the best or the worst with blue Powerade and maple syrup? Click the link to vote. We're only counting votes in the poll. We will not be counting comments. So do you want kombucha, pickle juice, children's Motrin, or Cholula. Oh, children's ibuprofen, sorry.
Yeah.
Or Cholula. So
Pickle
thank
juice.
you, James.
Pickle juice.
No lobbying here. It's up to the audience.
It's going to be so gross. Thank you.
James, well, we will find out the answer after our next speaker, and James, we'll see you back after the Q&A.
All right.
Thank you very much.
And now, on with the show.
Just sweating already thinking about that. But now I'd like to introduce our second guest who's going to be speaking tonight about Artivism. Suzi Q. Smith is an award-winning artist, an activist, and an educator. In addition to being recognized as one of Denver's top poets, she teaches poetry and creative writing. She serves as the co-chair of the Denver Commission on Cultural Affairs, and she's worked extensively as an activist with civil rights organizations, victims advocate organizations, arts organizations, peace organizations, hospitals, and prisons. Her forthcoming collection, A Gospel of Bones, will be available from Alternating Current Press in December 2020. Please welcome Suzi Q. Smith.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you tonight to close out this season of Mixed Taste. So I got to be the poet for the first night this season, and now I get to be your closing speaker. So let's talk about Artivism this evening. What the heck is Artivism might be the question that you have right now. So I'm going to explain that a little bit. Artivism is a portmanteau word combining the words art and activism. You may have guessed that already. So in more expanded terms, the artivist, the artist plus activist, uses her artistic talents to fight and struggle against injustice and oppression by any medium necessary. The artivist merges commitment to freedom and justice with the pen, the lens, the brush, the voice, the body, and the imagination. The artivist knows that to make an observation is to have an obligation, and that is by the author M.K. Asante. But now it's become a whole thing. So Artivism online, Artivism connects art and activism. Artivism looks for new ways of political intervention, opens up new forms of disobedience and action that move beyond traditional paradigms of activism. And this encounter between art and activism also shakes our representations of artistic practice, teasing it out of its usual circuits and habitats such as galleries and museums into the domain of daily life and public space. Very much like the work of Off Center and MCA. So there are a lot of different ways that they show Artivism in their organizations and in the work that they do. So you might be wondering what on earth this has to do with me. So this is what I do with the life and all of my work, right? So I'm an artist, activist, educator, and have been this whole time. It's very difficult for me to ever really consider not doing any of those things because I think I'm probably doing all of them all the time at any moment that I'm awake, right? So most people know me as a poet, and I'm also a singer, songwriter, playwright, educator, and definitely an activist. So to put it simply, though, they're all born from the same thing, right? I'm a person who feels things really deeply, and I have to express them in some capacity so I don't explode. So the first time I heard the word artivist was from Ashara Ekundayo, and she is a curator, activist who used to live in Denver. She was the founder of Pan-African Arts Society here in Denver, Colorado. She ran Cafe Nuba, It's Hot and It's Black, and she now lives in Oakland. Her current project is Artist as First Responder, and you can learn more about that at artistasfirstresponder.com. And I met Ashara when I was a young budding poet, and I heard her say the word artivist, and I went, oh, I believe that you are speaking to me. So I was young and fiery, and it resonated right away. So I had already grown up in the tradition of the Black church, right? Which includes people giving testimony, which includes people speaking up, which includes moving through music, which includes a lot of those, careful study and creating change in our communities and building a community and being a community. And where art and activism are really intrinsically linked, right? Where I think that growing up with the tradition of the Jesus who flipped tables in the temple and that sort of thing. And so also really being dedicated to love and devotion for other people and our shared needs and wants. So in giving our testimonies and holding each other up and creating the things that we need, I think we had to be creative as people in all possible ways, right? And so it makes me think very much of this Gwendolyn Brooks quote. We are each other's harvest. We are each other's business. We are each other's magnitude and bond. So I began my career working for a civil rights organization when I was freshly 18 years old. And since then, I've been volunteering and organizing and have worked for about 1,000 nonprofits and educational organizations and have made art all over the country for a very, very long time. And it has been my life. And I've generally just been a deeply passionate and the sort of woke Debbie Downer at every party. So this has just been my calling for a very long time. Also, I come from an artistic family, which is full of musicians and actors and dancers. So pictured here is my grandmother playing her piano. And this is the house that I grew up in and the house that she is probably playing her piano in right now. So I grew up in this house with her, and her father was a poet. And so I grew up reading some of the books that she still has that were his, and his notes in the margins. And it was a way to know him, even though he died before I was born. And being artists and being passionate, and also like somewhere on the couch, probably there in the back, I also grew up watching Eyes on the Prize and understanding that our lives are our responsibility, our communities are our responsibility, and we use everything we have to make the world as livable as possible for ourselves and each other. And we're just an expressive people by nature. So this is how we communicate. So I think I became probably most feeling like an activist in 1992. I was 13 years old, and it was Martin Luther King Day in Denver, Colorado. And the regional branches of various white supremacist groups decided to host a rally at Colorado State Capitol on Martin Luther King Day. And Denver's Martin Luther King Day March and Parade is actually the second largest in the country, second only to Atlanta. So with the many thousands of people marching in the parade, we had to walk past the white supremacists and all of their sounds. And as a young and fiery person, I couldn't stand for it. And so I joined the protest, and I stood there with hundreds of other people in Civic Center Park, hurling insults at all the men in their white robes and their full regalia. And I was howling my own truth as loud as I could to counteract the horrid things that they were saying. This too felt like my responsibility as much as anything else that I did, as much as washing dishes, as much as being a part of my family. I just couldn't let this stand. So this particular day in 1992, if you weren't there, it might not surprise you to learn that it did not go well. So clearly things went bad between the protesters, the police, and the white supremacist groups. And later, watching the news and seeing the way that the story was being told, and seeing even the protesters being called hooligans. And I think that was the first time that I ever felt like I had been referenced on the news. It was very, very exciting, but also really, really offensive. And it made me feel like it was even greater responsibility to tell the story myself, because I was there. And it was the first time that I was ever pepper sprayed. And so I was already a budding poet and singer-songwriter, and giving my voice to every notebook that would listen, to shower heads and my bedroom walls, but I was not sharing anything publicly because I was very, very shy. And in this point, I had to get over that shyness, and I had to yell at the top of my lungs to anyone that would listen. So in this, an activist and an artist were definitely both born in me. However, I inherited this tradition, right, from many, many generations of ancestors, and many, many people have been doing this work. So Artivism, while the word was first appeared in text around 2008, and it's been used in some circles since probably early 2000s, but there's some debate around who created it. The practice of Artivism is certainly nothing new, right? Josephine Baker was absolutely an artivist. Diego Rivera was absolutely an artivist, right? And this photograph here is the photographer Danny Lyon, and this photo is from 1963, though it could be yesterday or tomorrow. And of course, Banksy is a well-known artist in today's times, but it's not anything new, right? People have been finding ways to make their voices heard since the beginning of time. So here is an actual piece of graffiti in Rome, and it says underneath, "Amplicatus, I know that Icarus is buggering you. Salvius wrote this." And I believe that was written inside a brothel wall. So people are making ways to find their voices and share them with the world, because we're just not meant to be silent. And also, it brings me to the question, right? Which the question is, I'm sorry, my slide seems to be a little bit stuck. Is all art activism? And I think about this question a lot. In some cases, I could argue yes, particularly if the argument is that empathy is the problem that we are trying to solve through our activism, right? I think that it's really, really difficult to create change without engaging the heart, right? I quote Sonia Sanchez all the time saying, for any movement to be sustainable, it has to be rooted in love. And what better way to communicate love and what better way to engage love than to bring in art, right? And to begin with art. And that's always got to be important. Also, I think about Tony Cade Bambara, who said that the role of the writer is to make the revolution irresistible. And so engaging the imagination, right, is the only way that we can really like begin a new world, right? It had to start with, like Dr. King had to say, I have a dream, right? Someone had to dream it first for it to become, for the civil rights movement to happen. And so if we can't imagine, if our imaginations are atrophied, it's very, very difficult to create change. And that's part of the role of the artist. And so in some cases, you could argue that all art is activism because it's engaging those imagination muscles and it's engaging the heart. And so, yes, and, but also sometimes no, right? And I think it depends on, we could argue about it forever. And I argue with myself about it all the time. But I also think about how Artivism can really like give voice to people who don't necessarily get represented, right? I love this quote from the author Arundhati Roy, because when we think about what Artivism can do, it also creates mobility and visibility for people who don't necessarily have it, and also creates spaces to build collective power for people who are often pushed to the margins, right? And places for them to gather and build and organize, right? And in some cases, artists gathering and organizing and building is itself activism, right? Artists have been at the heart of creating labor unions, right? And have been hugely involved in that around the world, right? For a very long time. So in many cases, artists organizing amongst themselves for what they need leads to movements that expand into beyond the art world, right? And also at the same time, like just building that community can help people to stop being gaslit and also find strength in those shared experiences and those connections and giving voice to each other and to themselves, right? And being able to own the story so that perhaps you can say what really happened when you were at a protest or a rally, and you have a lot of different ways to communicate that, and it's not left to someone else taking the narrative and making it another story. And so it creates a space for sharing those experiences and also creatively inspiring each other to build a better future, to hope for a better future, to imagine a better future, and to really start designing it together. And so we can do that dream weaving together and build solidarity. It also makes me consider the relationship between voice and power, right? And art and power, and who gets to tell a story and to whom, right? And whose voices is heard and by whom and by how many, and all of this, right? Of course, we know art reflects life, and we know that the same imbalances of power that exist in the world also exist in the art world, right? And so it's really important for organizations and mobilization to happen within the art world amongst artists, right? Just to create change even within the art world solely. And that itself is another type of artivism. And I still have so many questions, always, right? And that's one of them is activism effective without art? And perhaps we have all been to some events with very dry dinners and learning about all kinds of facts and figures and data And perhaps our hearts are not the most engaged in those events. I always would argue that every event should begin with a poem or close with a poem. Like, or is it even an event? Did anything really even happen if there was no poetry? Obviously, I'm a little bit biased around poetry. But I do believe that art's an essential tool, right, in advancing equity. I and many artists I know create perspectives that directly challenge existing power structures, right? Just the act of sharing our own narrative and owning that is itself a form of activism, right? Through art. In addition, our collective sharing of those stories, organizing around those stories, right? That can directly challenge power structures. And artists, again, have been playing key roles in movements around the world, right? Imagine the civil rights movement without music. Imagine overturning apartheid without music. And it really wouldn't have been possible. Those were really, really central to those movements. So I would argue that perhaps activism is possible without art, but I'm not sure it's really effective. And I also think that it's so important to include as many narratives as possible to share an entire story. When we think about, I hear often the United States referred to as a melting pot, and I think it's much more a mosaic. And the more pieces of that mosaic we can gather and put together, the more of a complete picture we're able to build, right? And also, I love the poet Audre Lorde in this quote: "If I didn't define myself for myself, I would be crunched into other people's fantasies for me and eaten alive," right? And that's what happens to so many of us who are not represented in art, who are not represented anywhere, who aren't represented in literature or theater or film. It's so important that we create these for ourselves to just remember that we exist. So I think that, yes, all art can be activism, and all activism is much more effective with art. I also believe that just sharing your own story is a form of power, especially when your story often goes untold, undertold, or mistold. Which leads me to even more questions. What is the artist's responsibility? Is it irresponsible for me to write poems that don't move people? Is it irresponsible for me to share poems that are about flowers? Well, I would argue that poems about flowers too are activism, but I think that the best answer to this question comes from one of my favorite singers, Nina Simone.
An artist's duty, as far as I'm concerned, is to reflect the times. I think that is true of painters, sculptors, poets, musicians. As far as I'm concerned, it's their choice. But I choose to reflect the times and the situations in which I find myself. That to me is my duty. And at this crucial time in our lives, when everything is so desperate, when every day is a matter of survival, I don't think you can help but be involved. Young people, black and white, know this. That's why they're so involved in politics. We will shape and mold this country, or it will not be molded and shaped at all anymore. So I don't think you have a choice. How can you be an artist and not reflect the times? That to me is the definition of an artist.
And clearly, I agree. More than 20 years after the first time that I was at a protest at Civic Center Park, I was asked to speak at the Women's March in Denver, January 2017. And to stand there again is the home of the very first place that really kind of birthed me as an activist. But this time, not being surrounded by a couple hundred people, but actually by 200,000 people. To show up in solidarity, it made me feel like the work is working and maybe we're getting something done.
This is not my first time on this stage. I've been speaking at protests and rallies and marches since I was a teenager. This is by far the largest crowd I've ever seen here.
And in closing, the late, great Toni Morrison: "In times of dread, artists must never choose to remain silent." It's been an honor to be here with you this evening, and I'm grateful to have inherited such a rich tradition to be a part of Mixed Taste tonight, and thank you ever so much. With that,
That was great. Thank you,
Suzi.
Suzi. That was super powerful. And what's going to follow it is super gross.
Yum, yum. It's time for a tasty and refreshing snack.
Or drink.
So now, Sarah, let's look at the results of our poll. Are you ready to find out your drink? So we had 47% pickle juice, followed by Cholula, then ibuprofen, then kombucha. I feel like the audience was pretty kind to you tonight, because this is not going to be nearly as gross as it could have been.
It could have been much.
Which is maybe a gift to all of us. All right, mix it up. Let's go.
Okay, so I've got the cocktail kit right here. So I'm going to I've already put in a little Powerade. I'm going to add a little bit more.
I'm going to make you full screen.
A little, this is the maple syrup from Costco. And then here's the pickle juice. This is homemade pickle juice from from cucumbers from my garden. I'm going to add that in now quite a bit because
you got some garlic,
dill, and vinegar, mostly, also a little sugar. And mix this up in the cocktail shaper from my neighbors. Thank you, Kim and Michelle. And then take that off. Well, I guess we're just going to pour it in unstrained. That's going to be even grosser.
You can't get the lid off?
No. Thanks, audience, for playing along. We're going to pour it in here. And then I've got a little bit of garnish. This is an Albert Einstein Lego man. I'm going to just tip him right on the edge of my drink there like an umbrella. Don't have a drink umbrella at home.
Very classy, mixed taste style.
I do have an Albert Einstein, so here we go. Bottoms up. That is surprisingly not bad.
No. I mean, great. Congratulations.
There's one thing that would make it better. Tequila. But I'm going to go ahead and have another sip. It's kind of hot here.
All right. Well, while Sarah enjoys her beverage, congratulations. Thank you, audience, for making a new discovery tonight. Maybe this will be the next hot cocktail.
All the kids are going to be doing it before you know it.
Oh, man, that's wonderful. We're going to get started with our Q&A now. So type your questions in the live chat box. We're going to bring back Elisabeth and Suzi, and we will take questions on both topics at the same time. We encourage you to draw connections between the two. So if you are able to make a connection between Zenos Paradox and Artivism, I will celebrate with the gong.
Fantastic. And I'll be pulling up your questions tonight and reading them too. We've got some questions coming through from our audience. So we'll bring back our speakers. Of course, we should say we have a prize tonight to the person who asked the question that makes the best connection. So please submit your questions through the live chat. And all right, we're going to get started. Let's see what we've got going out. We have so many questions coming in.
Whoa.
Lots of them, really good ones. I'm going to go to one of the ones that I saw first. This one is from Patricia. Patricia asks, will we ever achieve a truly fair and equitable society, or will we always be infinitely converging towards it, cutting bias in half and in half and in half again, but never really reaching that final point?
That is really excellently gong-worthy.
Yeah.
I would like to say that really Elisabeth's talk helped me to understand that I don't ever have to compromise again, right? We don't have to inch towards it. We don't have to meet halfway. There is no halfway. There it is.
That was good. That was very good, Suzi. Do you have anything to add to that, Elisabeth?
I think that was brilliant.
No. I think so too. All right, we've got another question coming in from Ricardo. And Ricardo asks, since Artivism attempts to make the revolution irresistible, I love that, does then equal the struggle for ideal human convergence? Does that equal the struggle for human convergence?
Wow, these are amazing questions.
They're really good. They're really good.
Really good. They're really...
I love the poetry in Zenos Paradox. And I think that this is going to be a Q&A that exists on a sort of metaphysical and really profound level. So way to go, everyone.
I think after this, let's get together and just watch a bunch of theories, like super string theory videos on YouTube, and write poems. I feel like it probably fits.
Yeah. That's great. And we can drink pickle juice. All right. Here's another question coming in. If art is a reflection of one's time, what does MC Escher's art reveal about the historical and social context? That's kind of a complex question.
It is a complex question. He was Dutch. What I love about what Escher did, I love that his mathematics was so good. And I think this is, for me, and I think, wow, this is just such a big thing for me, the equity in mathematics. Mathematics is used often to oppress people in many, many ways that we think is something we can't do. Escher found a way to express 100% legit mathematical concepts in a beautiful artistic way, and in fact communicates them better than we do sometimes.
And most of us understand MC Escher as an artist.
There you go. This is a question that came in early in the comments before we got to the Q&A, and now we're going to bring it up here. This is a question for Suzi. Paige asks, is all activism art?
I feel like perhaps I'm being critical, that I have seen some artless activism in my life. Though I think that it's possible. I mean, it's change making. It's engaging the imagination. I don't know that it always engages the heart, and that is the part that is that I question.
Yeah. And let's build on that a little bit with this next question. This comes from Saraswati009. I love the usernames, by the way. In both math and artivism, badly thought out definitions can have catastrophic consequences. In artivism, how can definition lead to paradoxes? What is a mathematician's responsibility? Question from both of you, different places.
Give you a little gong for that.
These are really hard questions.
Yeah, they are hard. Our audience is they're on point tonight. It's the last one.
Elisabeth, I also blame you for bringing a really hard topic to make space. So this is what you get.
I mean, there's one of these questions. I want to cheat. I think there's a story you might not know that I think relates artivism to mathematics. That it was deliberate. When mathematics was quantified and clarified, we threw out the pictures. It was very deliberate. There's a group called Bourbaki who, in making math rigorous, took away a lot of the artistic intuition. And so it's not an accident. And there are many things in art that there are many things in mathematics would give us power if we didn't dismiss the art and the beauty in mathematics.
And also, I think that activism is more effective when we have data.
Absolutely.
So, also, the number 8, someone had to draw that, right?
I'm going to go back. Excuse me. I'm going to go up to the top. And this is a question that came in kind of early. This one is from Peggy Parenti. And she asks, is it our limited vocabulary that makes art our infinitely crucial voice of expression? That's not an easy question either.
So language is my primary art form. So there's that. And I think that it's also important. I think that they really, when I think about mathematics and art, I think that they both do meet in the realm of space and imagination. And so in that way, they're the same thing, right? I think there's a certain amount of intuition and imagination involved in both. And that is where they converge.
Yeah, in my talk, I like to distinguish between math and art, that they're not the same, right? And in my last talk, in this talk, we talked about a disciplined imagination, right? I can imagine anything, but once I set the rules in mathematics, I have to go and forward and stick with what I've done. And math can't exist without imagination. It is completely abstract, and it's beautiful and extraordinary. And I think there's a very big activist issue around the inaccessibility of mathematics. I actually think I'm going to say a scary word, trigger alert, logarithms. It's actually a graphic design problem, right? It's not you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know enough about logarithms to agree or disagree, but it sounded really great.
But there's a lot of really beautiful mathematics, and I think there's so much intersection here. There's so much power. There's power. Mathematicians sometimes get lost in logic, and mathematicians will try to logic their way out of an argument, and that's not how you reach people. It's not how you communicate. And really quickly, I had a math professor say to me in college, "Isn't mathematics the best course you ever took? Isn't this the thing that's defining your life?" And I actually thought about it for a minute, and I said, "No, the best class I ever took was a theater class. Theater taught me everything I needed to know to get through life." So
Charlie loves that.
Amen. I'll gong that.
There you go. But this is a nice question that builds on that idea a little bit. This one comes from Kristen DeMarco. And she says, many of the images Elisabeth showed tonight were math represented as art. Does this mean math is a form of activism? And if so, what is that attempting to change or express?
math is not trying to change. No, it's not. But art can give us power. Art can give us access to mathematics, which gives us power. Mathematics itself does not care at all about activism.
However, math can be used to fuel activism.
Exactly. To have access to mathematics, we can use art to have access to mathematics. And pure math is pure abstract. It would be a hard sell. I could probably make something up. It's not art. It's not activism. But when you put art in math, when you use art to explain math and express mathematics artistically, the power is extraordinary.
Well, it was certainly extraordinary tonight. And there, Charlie's going to go, yeah. And I think maybe a nice way to close out this Q&A tonight is to call on frequent questioners, Detlink Bloom, who say, would Zeno appreciate the paradox about the artivism of mixed taste? It should last until infinity, but still it ends tonight. And I think, well, thank you, Detlink Bloom, for never going halfway either. We appreciate you tuning in every week. It's been great.
And your questions have been great. And I will go halfway to the gong and then halfway again. Awesome. Thank you, Elisabeth. Thank you, Suzi. Thank you, audience, for all your great questions. And now it's, what time is it, Sarah?
Well, I believe that it's
prize time.
Prize time.
So each week we give a very special prize to the person who asked the best question. And our DCPA marketing manager, who's chatting as Denver Center on YouTube right now, Cheyenne Michaels, has chosen her favorite question and determined the winner. And what is the prize tonight, Sarah?
Ooh, this is a good one. This is one of our little felt creations. We commissioned artist Carolyn Michaels, who created all the wonderful felt creatures you see in our mixed taste artwork this year, to create original miniature felted objects that we mailed to the winner of this prestigious award. So if you're interested in seeing more of Carolyn's work, check out her Instagram, Carolyn Does It, @CarolynDoesIt. So this is tonight's prize. This is a little turtle. He's got a prize on his back. It says first. Well,
because he won the race.
Because he won the race.
And the winner for tonight, we're excited to announce, is Patricia Dillinger. Will we ever achieve a truly and fair, equitable society, or will we always be infinitely converging towards it?
That was our first question. It was a great one. So congratulations, Patricia. All right, we need to
email us with your address, offcenter@DCPA, and Sarah, give it to me in this envelope one last time.
Okay, here we go. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Got it?
Got it.
Perfect.
We will mail it to you when you send us your address. Congratulations, and thank you all for participating.
All right, and now let's invite James back to enlighten us with the original poem inspired by tonight's talks.
James Brunt is a Denver-based actor, teaching artist, and poet. Welcome back, James Brunt.
Hello. That was some good listening. I had to do. So this is what I came up with. A turtle isn't just a slow-moving animal, but a glimpse into infinity. Moving and moving endlessly into that void, never letting itself be caught by the hair, the fast and persistent. Trying to reach that hand that closes together into a clap for tomorrow. I hate counting, but numbers are my imagination. It's what tells you how much you have of something. One hurting heart, two shaky fists, two stomping feet, one big voice, and one tearful eye socket. Trying to create a new world where we are treated equal and I can stand up and say what I believe without being killed in cold blood. Free to create art that changes perspective to infinity and beyond. Buzz had the right idea. When every day is an act of survival, you can't help but be involved. A line is made out of points, and so is the human life. We are born, we live good, or we survive living. Spacing out in the universe, hoping for peace, to see the world in a grain of sand. You are just a point in the world with no dimension. Art is pain because art is mathematics, twisting the brain till an idea forms into the universe. One revolution, 1 million people screaming, one system that needs to be broken. Heaven and a wild flower, or an eternity in 20 minutes. Fading away into existence, hoping that the generation after me fixes the things we have broken. And in the words of Woody from Toy Story, so long, partner.
James Brunt, ladies and gentlemen.
That was great. So long, partner.
And to quote Suzi, because it ended with a poem, it did exist. Thank you again for watching tonight. If you enjoyed tonight's program and you have the means, please consider donating right now at dcpa.today/mixtaste. I'm putting it in the live chat as I speak. Your one donation supports two great organizations, DCPA and MCA Denver.
While we suggest gifts of $20 a person, any amount helps and will be shared equally between our two organizations. So please show us that you valued Mixed Taste by donating right now. Your generosity helps us continue programming like this. And thank you so much for your support all season.
Well, this concludes our summer of Mixed Taste. Sarah, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you on this and surviving the insanity and the unknowns of virtual streaming. We made it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Charlie. This has been a great season. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been fun to put this on.
And we need to give your daughters a shout out because last week they got really jealous when I showed a picture by my daughter, right?
I'm afraid they did. So I've got this photo or this drawing that they made that says Mixed Taste at Home. Can you see that?
Made it big, yep.
Yeah, there's some llamas. And I've got a bonus picture here. This one's not finished. You can see that my daughter wrote not finished, but there's a picture of me and you there, Charlie.
There we are with our backgrounds and everything. We'll accept more fan art at offcenter@dcpa.org. And we want to thank our presenting sponsor, Blue Room. Blue Room is a private investment company born of invention, forward thought, and hope. Through best-in-class investing, they create space to amplify the power of human togetherness and change the world. Thank you, Blue Room. And thank you so much also to Peggy Finley for your support.
So let's bring everyone to say goodnight. Thank you, Elisabeth. Thank you, Suzi. Thank you, James. And finally, thanks to you, our virtual audience, for your excellent questions tonight and every night, for your socially distant engagement, for participating in this crazy experiment that we're putting on. That's a wrap for Mixed Taste at Home. Thanks for tuning in. And
good night.
Stay healthy out there. Good night.
Bye.
Bye.